Welcome to the Stitch Witch podcast. I'm feeling really weird today and I don't have that much time to film, so let's jump right into it. Okay, I think you can see Jelly Bean in the back there. I have, for whatever reason, I thought I had way more to share with you guys, but I don't really have that much. Today is going to be a not super finished object heavy kind of day, which I hope you'll be okay with. I only have 2 acquisitions, 2 cast-ons, no finished objects, and then just a handful of whips. So I guess we'll go in order of progression. I want to start with my whips first, and then we'll move on to my cast-ons and then my acquisitions, because I think that might be the easiest way to do it. Last episode, I left you guys also, sorry if I'm speaking a million miles a minute, I just have a lot of stuff to do today, so I want to get this through. I don't have a ton of time. I have freshly washed hair, freshly laundered sweatshirt. It's feeling good today. It's feeling good. So last time I left you with my grayling sweater, and I had said that I had done the back, but this time I started shaping the front left shoulder, and I guess that's, you know, all the progress that I've made so far. So this is the back, or this is the front left shoulder. I think I'm going to go all the way around the neckline until I get down to the V, and then I'm going to start on the right side. Now I have left this for, what is it, 2 weeks? I think the next thing I need to do is cable, so I at least have like a stopping point. But the problem is I have not been super good about keeping up with my knitting / creativity Hobonichi, and ideally I would have written exactly where I stopped and when, but I have been playing catch up and not been very good about keeping notes. But however, I am still absolutely enamored with this yarn. As I had mentioned before, this is the Lion brand Woolly's Roving Origins mixed with 2 strands of Chinese mohair that I get in bulk online. I am still working through my first ball, but it's gotten so small and kind of finicky that I've had to rewind my hand, which is always a good sign for me. I feel like this is when I know we're cooking with gas. And in this entire thing, or in this like little pouch, I keep my little compression gloves. Part of my knitting slowdown has been because I've been dealing with some pretty severe tendon issues, I guess because, you know, your hands are fragile, and I also sleep with like extreme, like, mammal hands, so I tuck like this, and I've needed to purchase braces to sleep in, but then when I sleep with the brace, it's not the most comfortable thing for me, so I don't really love it. It doesn't feel super natural. So anyway, what this has all basically come to mean is I haven't been able to knit as much, so as much as I would have liked to have more progress on this, it's just not taking precedent right now. And I think I would have been more anxious about knitting through the beginning of spring a little bit more, but this year I'm feeling a lot more confident that I'll knit throughout the year. Last year I think I was really getting into knitting, and so when I hit a roadblock, I didn't really know what to do to fix it. I didn't really have a plan to work around it, and I felt really defeated and everything. And you know, nowadays I just don't feel like it's my knitting ego is not so fragile. I feel like I have a little bit more confidence. Sorry, I think a piece of mohair got stuck in my eyelashes. Yeah, I definitely just feel like because there's more confidence and more momentum, if something throws me, you know, off track or I feel frustrated, like there are plenty of things that I have maybe left on the back burner a little bit, and instead of feeling burnt and defeated by them, I just move on and I do something else. So that's been one positive as of knitting. I can feel it already in February of this year that my knitting muscles and my knitting chops have increased to the point where I'm no longer insecure and I'm not so weak that a rough project is going to just like entirely throw me off course. Okay, the next couple ones I actually think are quite fun. Last time I had mentioned, sorry for the crinkling, last time I had mentioned an in-bulk knit, which is one of the resolutions that I have for this year. I'm going to be picking at this mohair until I find it. Ha, I got it. I apologize. I'm sure we're all sick of seeing people pick mohair out of their faces. I said one of my New Year's resolutions it was to knit through the summits of the year. Oh my goodness. And I have like fun DIY craft friends at work now, and some of them are pagans. And yeah, one of them in particular, we always share well wishes to each other, and I had mentioned that I was making a pair of in-bulk mittens. I have finished the first mitten minus the thumb. This is like my pièce de résistance. I think this might be like the best thing I've made since my halibut cowl. I think there's just something about color work that is so fun and striking. This is made with soft sprout. I've been really having a moment with this chartreusey green, and you'll see that in my acquisitions portion as well. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this color paired with the black. I feel like it looks a little bit more edgy, and I love it with like this kind of outfit because I think for me, the knitting aesthetic that I like tends to be very graphic and like very fun. And then my regular style isn't always like super compatible with super colorful knits that are really fun and a little traditional. So I wanted to find a way to blend a contemporary and edgy color scheme with a more traditional knit product, and I think the result came out really good, and I think that's going to be something that I continue to iterate on throughout the year. I know I've already kind of belabored the point and no one really cares like that specifically, but I think talking about personal style and aesthetics and taste and kind of curation is something that a lot of knitters are preoccupied with doing. So I'm assuming if you're watching this channel that like you at least care a little bit about style and knitting and fashion and that intersection, kind of that intersection of mindfulness. But yeah, this is all to say, here is the back. I haven't really made a mistake on this section. I did obviously make mistakes in the gusset, but I don't mind it. Like, they're not horrendous mistakes to the point where it's distracting. And I am planning on picking the other mitten before I go in and do the thumb gussets. And this product actually reminds me a little bit about a vest that I made last summer. Now, this is the Servette top, which is a tank top that I purchased, or I got a free pattern from online, and I made it in Noro. I don't remember which Noro that I made it in, but I remember at the time I was like, this is a little colorful. I don't know what I can do to style it to be a little bit more true to my style, but I find that when I wear this over mesh, it's like perfect. So this is kind of similar, where I feel like it's bright, it's fun, it's very colorful and contemporary, so it hits all the boxes of stimulation that I like as a knitter, but is still kind of convertible enough to fit into my traditional wardrobe. One thing that I will mention about this pattern is my magic loop is not perfect. This is the first time I've used magic loop in like a year. I don't really use magic loop that often, and I don't prefer it. And usually when I do it, I don't really have issues. But for whatever reason this time, I did block my mitten, so it looks a little bit better than before, but there are some tensioning issues like up on the sides. It's not super obvious, but I'm not fully pleased. So I would love to see a little bit more improvement on the next one, like that corrugated rib right there where the first and second halves of the needles join. But overall, I would say my floats are very neat. I did not catch floats because I did not want to bother with the issue where sometimes you have a dominant color and a non-dominant color, but generally I'm pretty happy with my floats. Like, I don't usually care for floats. It's not something that I tend to check because I don't want to stress myself out. I'm not a perfectionist. Like, I'm really not a perfectionist. I'm just someone who likes to do stuff. But I will say the floats on this mitten are kind of like flawless. I'm really proud of them. And I struggled a little bit with tension because I was knitting this on and off. Like I mentioned, this caused a lot of hand pain, and I think it's especially bad in the beginning because you don't have much to grab onto. As you knit to like this point, it's much easier. So this entire half after the thumb gusset became much quicker because I had a thing to hold onto. And so I think it's a lot easier to turn your product around when you have like a product your hands can grip onto. But yeah, because I was knitting on it in such small sections, this first part in the beginning took like a whole week, and then this entire section took like just a week because it was so much faster when it was bigger. But that did mean that in the beginning I was kind of picking it up and putting it down so many times in a row that I don't think my tension was completely consistent. I will show you. I don't know if this was a scrap ball to begin with. This is how much black I have left. I assume it must have been a scrap ball because this is how much like chartreuse I have left. So I think this will, all in all, probably take maybe 2 balls of yarn, maybe even less. 100 grams, I'll have to weigh the final amount. If I didn't mention this on the first podcast episode, it's very likely I forgot to. These are knit on 3.25 millimeter needles. They actually fit perfectly to my hand, which is surprising because, again, like I mentioned, I have pretty small hands. Just for reference, this is one of the large iPhones. So I don't know if that makes any reference point. A5 notebook. So I have like smaller than average adult women hands, so I was a little bit worried that this length was going to be too big. And even when I put it up here, it doesn't look too big at all, and it fits perfectly. It fits like a glove, or like a mitten, I should say. And I really enjoy it. The other thing I really enjoy actually is having the functionality of my thumbs out. I was thinking, would it be crazy if I didn't do a full mitten like thumb? What if I did the gusset and then I chopped off like just the very tip of the thumb so that way I could have my thumb tips to text? But I am not fully sold on the idea because I think the finished object would look so cute with the little mitten tops. And it's starting to felt, so I really want to finish the other mitten first. I was in the city visiting the Met and I had my one little mitten on, and it was definitely better than nothing, but I so badly wanted both of them together. Okay, next I have some progress on my Sadie hood. So last time I showed you, this was probably my main project. Last time I had just the top portion, and now I have most of this hood, most of the neck bit, and then the last part that I need to work on is the full wraparound scarf portion. Now what I had mentioned was this, for me, the inspiration is a medieval cap. I have pigtails on, so this is going to be really lumpy, but it's going to be like a hood like this, and then there's a scarf, and then you wrap the scarf around and then you tie it in the front. a lot of people have already finished their test knits and they look so, so good. I am honestly, frankly, very, very jealous of those people. But again, my hands have been hurting like crazy. So I've been trying to go on and off. There were times when I had to take 3 days off, and then there are times where I had to take 1 day off, and then times where I just take an hour to knit here and there. So yeah, it just kind of depends. But I wanted to show you guys this progress because it is the second cable piece I've ever worked on. So I'm still pretty proud of how much I was able to do correctly. Okay, my terrible news is that I heard my camera battery die, and then I went to get up to change it, and I fully just stepped on my lantern moon needles. And I don't have another pair of these. I'm really sad. Oh, I'm really sad. I don't think I have another pair of 4mm. Oh, I have one. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the lantern moon. This is the second pair of lantern moon needles I've broken. One was a 375, and this is a 4. So if you are looking for lantern moon needles, I would say be very, very judicious when you use them. Yeah, I don't know about the wooden needles, man. I really, really want to try C-Knit needles or even the Knit Pro needles because my friend has a set of the Knit Pro needles and they are super, super smooth and buttery, and I've really been enjoying my lantern moons. Like, they're all I've been using lately, but they keep snapping on me and these are too expensive to snap. Anyways, what I was trying to say is this is my second cabling project and it is so much easier than the tulip loop cardigan or the tulip loop vest, I believe, because the way that the pattern was written, it just tends to be a little bit more obvious. And I'm also working on the Esther jacket or Esther sweater, and that one is not cables, but it's also more complicated. So I don't know if maybe the other loops pattern writing was just not necessarily to my taste, but at the very least I think this is going a lot faster. However, like I said, it's a much more mindful knit because you have to work across various charts. Definitely got a lot easier. I'm notoriously bad at memorizing charts. Just it's not evident to me, so I think for people who are more seasoned, they can be like, yeah, it took me a couple of tries and then, you know, I was off to the races and I figured it out. For me, every single time I need to count, every single time I need to look at the chart, it never gets any easier for me. We'll see in the future, but it has this really cool lattice design here. And I went to the Met last weekend, and one of my favorite exhibits is the Arms and Armor section, and I went there and I saw all the like beautiful you know, arms and armor and some of those guys like make me want to act up a little bit, but yeah, they do kind of remind me of this. So I was really happy that this was kind of like the vague inspiration that I had. I wanted to look a little medieval, I wanted to look a little bit arts and armory with the chainmail and the mesh and everything, and I do think I did establish that effect. There's just so much more knitting to do. So like I mentioned, this kind of neck piece needs to reach the end of this hood, and then there is a full-on like scarf that goes along both edges. So this, imagine, extended out all the way, and then on this side also extended out all the way so that you can put the hood on and then tie it around and actually tie a knot. So something like the Sophie hood, or the Josie hood, or any of the scarfed hoods that are happening right now. I have to finish this test knit in like 2 or 3 weeks, so I don't think this will be out until like springtime, to be honest, but it is looking really, really nice. Like I mentioned, some people have finished this already. I'm hoping to finish it eventually soon. This is my second ball of Patton's Classic Wool Worsted. Each one is around 194 yards, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So once I finish this ball, we'll be at like 400 yards, and I think that might be it. She mentioned more, I think, on her pattern test call listing. So obviously I don't have a finished measurements yet. I don't have a specified information because we're still going through the test and making sure all the numbers work out. But, you know, by the end of it, I will let you know how much yarn from stash I have used up. I will say not as much as I was secretly hoping because I wanted to get some of this out of my stash. But the color looks great. Obviously, I would have preferred it to be a titch lighter, but yarn that you use from your stash is better than yarn that you don't use at all. My next whip is my Pressed Flowers cowl. Also knit on Lantern Moon cables, but this time with the Knit Pro birch needles. I enjoy these as well. These are also knit on 4mm needles, just like the Sadie shawl with the Sadie snuggle hood. And I have finished my prescribed 12 inches of this pattern. It looks a little bit like rough to see here, like what the exact print is, but it's a grid. It's a really small, fine mesh grid. And I think because I'm working with a hand-dyed color in the background, it looks a little bit more stripy from far away. I don't mind it. I can't wait for this to block because it looks so soft and luscious. I have yet to get to the actual flower portion because I've been knitting on so many other things. I love knitting on this project. I'm a little scared to start knitting on it because I have to do a change of chart because right now I memorized this part was easy. to sit down and do the change of chart, I think will take a little bit of time, but then from there, I think it'll be nice and relieving, because it's mosaic knit. You're not knitting with two colors. It's not like technically color work, or it's color work, but it doesn't feel like two-handed color work, so it should be easy on the hands. And it's knitted flat, so not too difficult. I mentioned this before, but the first time I knit any of the Pressed Flowers items was incredibly difficult for me. I think it was around this time last year, and I also knit it when I had to do car repair stuff, which is also today. But yeah, it was a very different process the first time around. I feel much more proficient, and I think feeling so different a year later has really inspired me to keep going and to see exactly where my knitting journey will take me. And then for whatever reason, I have like a single little cable here with a single 4mm needle. I hope I can find the other one. You know, sometimes you find like missing things and you're a little bit like worried about where they'll go. I have no clue how much this cowl will use up yarn-wise. I was hoping again that I would have used a little bit more than I have so far, but alas, again, using stash yarn is good yarn. I'm hoping that I can kind of like keep it going. The thing that really has been using up stash yarn lately, though, for me is the Josie hood. Now, this is a hood that I am knitting with my husband and a friend. I originally purchased yarn for this. Now, like, I will show you the yarn in a bit. It's a beautiful, beautiful yarn, but it just, for whatever reason, wasn't looking super good in the project. I'm not averse to trying again in the future, but I had another yarn that was kicking around and I didn't really have a project for it, so I figured let's try this project with stash yarn first, and then if I like the stash yarn project, I can do it again with this fancier yarn. But I don't even know if I like this finished project. I don't even know if I like this designer. I haven't really used their stuff before. So anyway, this is the My Josie hood, and I am knitting it in a beautiful, beautiful yarn. It clearly is a color fade. It's actually from Lion Brand as well, but this is my first polyester yarn. This is called the Landscape Renewed line, which I guess is recycled polyester. I love the way this feels. It is so incredibly soft. It's extremely luxe. The yarn is so smooth. It feels beautiful. Like, it feels like a luscious, beautiful cardigan. However, it is like pilling in a way that is already making me really concerned, because all it's doing is like rolling around on itself in a project bag. It's not even really traveling anywhere. So I do really fear that this is going to look pretty worse for wear even before I can get it out. But I think the way you wear this is like this. I'm not actually positive, but I think it's like a big kind of bonnet. You pull it over the head, and then again, there are these big ties that you tie around, and then there's an I-cord that you wrap and tie into a bow. And I think having the colors makes it just a little bit more fun. I believe the colorway is called Dreamscape or Dream World or like Cloudscape. You'll find it. It's the only one that is this kind of like purpley lilac combination. All the other ones are quite earthy toned or neutral toned. And I got this on clearance at Joann's last year, so this is definitely considered stash yarn for me. I bought this for Black Friday, and originally I wanted to make some kind of sweater with it, but I didn't have enough yarn. I wanted to hold it double with something else, but I didn't have enough yarn of that one either. I was definitely playing like Extreme Yarn Chicken. So once I realized the patterns that I wanted to make at the gauge that I wanted to knit it at was going to cause me to play Yarn Chicken, I figured I should probably just knit something that allows the product to shine. So unfortunately, this is like the third My Josie hood I really started, and obviously this is the furthest I've gotten. Every other version I only did like this first panel, which is just like a stockinette block, and I didn't really check gauge or anything. I don't think it's super necessary for something like this, but every single other one turned out a little bit like subpar. So what doesn't look like that much progress was actually 3 attempts at making this hood. It was a knit along, but no one else has knit this much anyway, so I'm not feeling like too much pressure to keep going. Unfortunately, this is the easiest thing to knit on. Like, I really want to keep knitting on it because it's lots and lots of stockinette with minimal shaping. Now, the shaping is a little bit annoying because you do need to count like where you are, and I never enjoyed doing that. I'm a little bit dreading going back and figuring out where I am exactly, because, you know, Lord knows I have no clue where I am. I took notes on my work computer. I don't have my work computer with me now. It's also now since been 7 days since I've last worked on this, because the last day I worked on this was, you know, my work from home day last week. But anyway, this was a cast on that I did, and I enjoyed the project. I just suggest, if you're going to do this, to treat it the way you would a Sophie scarf or a Sophie shawl, because you do need to be keeping track of your increases, and I wasn't super careful with that. Yeah, that's everything for my whips. I have 2 cast-ons. Another cast-on. However, it's a disaster. So like I mentioned, I bought some yarn for the My Josie hood, and I bought this beautiful hedgehog fiber alpaca boucle. It is the color of the season. I'm in love. I have no words. It's beautiful. It is called alpaca boucle. It's 66% alpaca, 34% silk in the color Avo. I'm assuming short for avocado. It could be Avo. I don't know. I don't know where Hedgehog Fibers is located. Or it says Ireland, actually. I bought this at Downtown Yarns. It was $38. I bought 2 for the My Josie hood. It was like $80 for this. And granted, there's a ton. There's 620 meters in here. So there's a ton of yardage in here. And it is so soft, so smooth. And I had it to hold with Soft Sprout. And this color is absolutely stunning. I knit up an Oslo hat. But you'll notice that the Oslo hat is weirdly ginormous. And that's because my dumbass couldn't figure out the gauge properly, so I wanted to knit it on 4.5mm needles because I don't really like hats on 3.75s, and I don't have 3.75 in 16-inch circulars, and that's how I prefer to knit my hats. It's a whole thing. Anyway, I knit the junior small because I figured the junior small would be a good size. It's huge. It's huge. I have pigtails on. I don't know if you can tell. A hat is not supposed to be this big. The brim is like 40 stitches too wide. So I think I need to cut like this much fabric before I can make it like a regular hat size. But I think this is really cute, and I wanted this to match my mittens because the mittens are the same Soft Sprout color. Obviously it doesn't have the like avocado color added in, but I think on paper they actually look really good together. So I was really hoping for a hat and mitten set, you know, like this is so cute, so chic, but I'm going to definitely have to tear this out, and this yarn is so valuable. I don't want to like not use it. What I will say is this is already 200 yards of fabric because I'm out of the ball. I wound them together. I did one each, and I wound them together. This is a double folded brim. I obviously knit way too many stitches. I think I cast on like 104, and I probably should have cast on like 60. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do. I might just not make this hat. I tried to cast on again on like baby sizes. Like I think I knit the smallest size or something, like 84 stitches, and it ended up not being super clear like what the size is because of course on 16-inch needles they're super scrunched together. I have no clue what to do with this. One of my work friends was like, oh, just turn it into like a sweater. Like this is enough ribbing for a sweater probably, right? Like that's crazy. It actually is enough ribbing for a sweater. I cannot believe she said that out of jest, and it actually is basically waist-sized ribbing. However, it was so easy to make. This was one day of knitting. So, you know, I was at the laundromat doing some chores. I did this on Sunday. It wasn't too much work. It wasn't horrendous to have to undo or unpick, but I really love it. I love that I did a regular long tail cast on. I love that it kind of just looks like a magic cast on at the bottom because you're folding together and knitting. And my friend is doing the Oslo hat, and hers looks so good. She did hers on recommended needle sizes. So she's using a fingering weight and a DK weight, a fingering weight yarn and a mohair silk. So it's coming out to be like a light DK gauge, and it feels so beautiful on that 3.75 needle. It's super silky. I think because the yarn that she's using is also high in silk content, just drapes absolutely beautifully. This is not it, like it's not it, but I love the yarn combination. It feels so squishy. My one concern is that the boucle doesn't look very boucle-y. Like from here, does it look like boucle, or does it just kind of look like yeah, like messy wool? To me, it kind of just looks like messy wool. Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's extremely soft. Like, I would just sleep with this. And what I will say is the Hedgehog Fibers boucle alpaca silk is a fantastic blend. I've wound up one of them. That ball is massive because obviously it's 600 something yards. So yeah, this is a cast on that will immediately become a cast off, and I will have to start over. But I did want to show you guys because it was making pretty good use of some of my stash yarn. Or not stash, I guess, because it's not old yarn, but it was definitely making good use of yarn, and I'm going to have to unravel all of this, and it will be absolutely devastating. But considering it's just a stockinette hat, shouldn't be too hard. I am also really inspired by Hillary from New Moon Knitting to do some, so I work in child protection, that's my job, and I was really hoping to do some knitting for one of the charities that works for foster care kids, and foster care is like part of what I actually do at work. So it is important to me as a professional cause, but it also like works really nicely as like a hobby cause. So once I finish my own personal Oslo hat, I might start knitting a children's hat, or maybe I should start with a children's hat because it's small and it would get me a little bit of muscle memory to figure out. Yeah, I might start with the children's hat. So if I start over, I will show you guys what that ends up being. I think charity knitting is a fantastic idea. So I have to thank Hillary for, you know, posting that video. And if you don't know Hillary's channel, she is at New Moon Knitting. Sorry, my husband called. Yeah, the last thing I'm making is a sweater for my hubby. I had mentioned that I wanted to make him something for Valentine's Day. It is almost Valentine's Day. We're not there. I had already mentioned, I belabored the point over and over again. I've been dealing with hand injuries. So I've been trying to most important is my test knit because I actually have a deadline for that. And then comes like cold weather stuff and like religious knitting. So I'm like maybe trying to get the religious knitting done. And then I have like knits with friends. Anyway, this is my husband's sweater. It's the Esther sweater. You can't see anything because it's really hard to tell. But hopefully you can see this texture. It's really cool. So I've never knit anything in like this at all. You can see there's this really cool moss diamond stitch, and then between the moss diamond stitch is stockinette that kind of carves out the edges. Now this is the back yoke piece. I'm knitting this in a men's size large, so pray for me because it's a lot of knitting, but I'm knitting on my favorite needles, my Lantern Moon needles, which I hope I don't step on these and break these, but these are knitted on a 4.5 millimeter. So I believe I'm knitting off gauge a little bit. She might suggest 4 millimeter. I'm doing 4.5. I'm knitting the large because I want it to be oversized. Or I'm trying to match a sweater that we like on him, and that one fits well. I would like it to be a little bit bigger than that. So that's kind of how I've chosen to do the sizing on this. Obviously, I don't know whether it will actually look good or not, but I think for most sweaters, like you can probably just kind of tell, like, you know, while you're working through it. But it's looking good so far. I have been broken because this chart is pretty difficult to read. I have started and stopped this 3 separate times. So the beginning, you know, obviously before the stitch pattern really gets self-evident, it's a lot harder to figure out like what's what. And people were not kidding when they said this was a little bit hard to read on the front and back. I think I'm pretty good at reading my knitting. I'm not the best, but I'm not illiterate at reading my knitting. And this was pretty hard to do. And I caved and I finally got Knit Companion for the iPad. So when I knit on this, I have to have my iPad with me, which makes it a little bit more limiting because, you know, I tried working with just reading it on, you know, a PDF reader, and then I tried to read it printed and with a marker just to like really keep track of where I am. And both of those options just really, at one point or another, I was always messing up. So I finally caved and I got Knit Companion. I haven't upgraded to the paid version yet. I think it's worth it. I'm not saying that I'm not going to upgrade to the paid version. It's just like, I'm not great with tech. So I need to like feel for how to use the app first. And then once I get comfortable with the app, I might, you know, want to go ahead and try to get some of the more primo features. But basically, it's really helpful because it keeps track of exactly where I am in each row. And because this project is growing so rapidly and is quickly going to get bigger and bigger. And also part of this that's scaring me is the chart doesn't include everything. Like at one point, you max out the increases and then Petite Knit says, and then just continue and keep it in pattern. And to me, that's really scary because I'm not very good at using my brain, obviously. So we'll see how much I do of this. When I knit on this, I feel really accomplished. So this is one of those knits that is not mindless. Like the Grayling sweater is pretty mindless. It does require a chart. This is also pretty mindless. It does require a chart, but like on the grand scheme of things, it's not that difficult. Like these projects that are all charted projects, which for whatever reason, every project I have besides the Also is a charted project. They are challenging, and then you get into a groove, and then I think it just becomes a little bit more familiar. This one is still at the stage where it's really confusing to me, and the sheer size is scary to me, and the fact that it's a gift knit has put a little bit of pressure on me to like make it good. So I have to be in the right mind state to work on this. I'm medicated today, so today might be a good day for me to work on this project, but yeah, unfortunately I don't have as much process or project process to show you as I would have liked. It's been, what, like a week since I cast on, and I really only have maybe like 2 or 3 inches of work on the back yoke. I'm making this out of Lion Brand local wool. Like I had mentioned in my last video, Joann's is going out of business, and local wool is my favorite wool as of late. So I'm absolutely petrified that I'm not going to be able to get this anymore. It is horrendously overpriced, or shall I say, it is priced like a boutique yarn when it's coming from Lion Brand, which I know doesn't really mean anything. I know it's like this is all brand positioning, and now I know why Lion Brand also owns Quinns & Co. Because if you were to tell me they were making all those premium yarns at Lion Brand, I would not be that interested, but because it's Quinns & Co, it feels different, right? So if you don't know, those are one company. And this local wool is all milled, or like shorn, spun, milled, and processed into wool in the US. And I think that's pretty great. It's a really good price point if you can find it on sale, because right now Joann's it's around $8 a ball, which is the cost of like Patton's classic wool. So I would highly recommend it. I do want to buy more. I am currently sitting on a huge stash of yarn, so I don't want to buy more because I added 10 balls of this to my stash last month. And if you're aware, I'm on a stash down journey. So as much as I feel like it's a really great value and I could get sweaters for $40, $50 right now, that sounds so enticing to me, and I love the yarn that it comes out with, or the fabric that is made from this yarn, but I just can't justify adding so many yards of fabric to my stash when I am so trying to actively stash down the yarns that I have, and specifically stash down some of the older yarns that I have. So alas, I'm sharing this with you guys. Please buy the Joanna inventory before they sell out. I'm sure a lot of people have already rated the site because I went on to try to I did. I went online to try to peek to see if there were other yarns that I might want to purchase before they like fully kick the bucket, because I hear even within like a month or two they're going to be out of here. It's going to be relatively quick. Their death will be swift and silent. And so I'm obviously mourning the loss of, like, you know, first we lost AC Moore, and I mean, Michael's is going to be the last one, but Joanne was always the best, right? Like, Joanne was definitely always the best place to go to because they had sewing stuff, and they had yarn, and they had things for illustration and beading and everything like that. So I had a really big soft spot in my heart for this, you know, big box store, and I'm certainly not going to go to Hobby Lobby, and not in this political climate, and not like after what they've done to the rest of our craft stores. But yeah, so I'm still a little bit on the fence as to whether I want to panic buy or like panic support in their last few minutes of conscience, like of being alive and being here. But yeah, so what I have left are these 10 balls, and that's pretty much it. So that is all of it for my recent podcasting. I'm sorry if today's episode was like really off the rails. We have like home stuff, car stuff. I have like friends who are going through like the ringer right now, so I've been kind of answering text messages on the side. So I apologize if today was a little bit of a wacky Looney Tunes episode, but I wanted to film while I still had the chance. Still making progress towards that goal of like uploading consistently throughout the year, and so yeah, hopefully by next week, here, or the next podcast, here are the goals that I would like to have accomplished. I definitely want to have finished the Sadie hood because it's, hello, the testnet is due, so that needs to be done. I would love to have made more progress on my Alma mittens and maybe have had the other mitten finished, not necessarily the hand, but at least the other glove. I want to have already started the color work on my Pressed Flowers cowl, and I want to have a little bit more of the sweater, even if it's just like an inch or two. I feel like because it's so slow going, I might pop a like progress keeper on there or something just to like show where I am on these things. And ideally I would have also liked to cast on another Oslo hat. I'm not really set on what size I want to make it in. I mean, maybe I'll just make it in a children's size and call it a day, because that might be like a fun, friendly thing to do. So with that being said, I think that is everything for my podcast, this little section, bi-weekly podcast. I don't really know how often I upload, but that is it. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. Again, I apologize if this was a crazy wackadoodle one, but hopefully you got some knitting in and some catching up, and I will see you on the next one. Bye now.